Everybody, welcome to Monday Night Mythbusters. I'm Dr. Carolyn George of Vita Integrative Medicine, and I have Leslie Harrington, Transformational Coach, with us again tonight. So thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we're going to be speaking about fatigue and the top 5 ways to beat that nasty devil, fatigue. Okay? So while everybody's kind of getting set in, kind of joining us, if we can have some thumbs up for people that have had the experience of fatigue, not just like tired where you've been up late, but that overwhelming, heavy lead in your boots, kind of feeling like you just can't do another thing.
Not functioning.
So give me a thumbs up for anybody that's been experiencing that. And hi, Alex. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen. Hi, Alex. What's interesting, too, to distinguish is there's kind of that fatigue that everyone thinks is normal. It's really common. It's kind of like that after lunch or that afternoon sluggishness you might feel or whatever. And it's very common that you feel that way, but it's not normal. In terms of like, you typically should have just a straightforward, consistent energy level throughout the day, you know, and based on even appropriate circadian rhythms, there's not this up and down unless it's, you know, your blood sugar driving some of your
redo that.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of these things that people experience consistently or regularly are really actually not normal. They're not healthy. They're not the ideal. So we want to kind of just spend a little bit of time talking about that and then diving into some things that you can do about it. Okay, so hi, Marianne. Hi there, Nick.
Hi, guys.
Welcome. So again, thumbs up if anybody's had that boots like heavy lead feeling of fatigue. And we can just see just how common that is. So fatigue is a very general term. It's kind of used willy-nilly in medical offices and, people complaining about how tired they are. But we're really wanting to concentrate on, that's lasting, that's not just an overnight thing, not just a weekend thing, but that fatigue that you just keep on, you have trouble getting out of bed or trouble sleeping, you're just really not functioning. So you go to see your doctor and they look at you and they listen to your heart and they say, oh, you're fine. We'll do a CBC just to make sure. And then that's pretty much all you get. And they see the CBC is normal. And then they tell you, you just need more sleep. Go get some more sleep. And you leave the office feeling very unsatisfied and you've got no
and
further
unvalidated, right?
And unvalidated, yes.
John and Michelle joined. Hey, guys.
Hey, guys. So what kind of things can cause fatigue? So there is a myriad of things. The list is longer than my arm for the things that can cause fatigue. So we're going to go through some of them, and if you know of other ones, please just shout it out, type it in.
If you've been diagnosed or told that your fatigue is a result of a condition, which you'll see a lot of that when you see a list. I mean, probably most conditions have that, with the exception of, anxiety and irritability, which you can still get fatigue with those.
Right, almost every illness is associated with some sort of fatigue. So just kind of talking a little bit about the body's energy before we kind of dive into reasons. Your cells need energy. They get energy from that combination of oxygen and sugar that goes together in your cell to make something called ATP. You also, though, need a lot of cofactors for that to work. You need iron, you need your B vitamins, you need different proteins, amino acids. So you need a whole host of different factors for your body to make energy for your cells to do what they need to do. And hormones, of course, are involved. So we're going to be talking about a lot of these different things. But at the bottom of the basket, when you really get down to it, you need your little mitochondria working. And mitochondria is a big, fancy term, which some of you may be familiar with. Some of you may not be from your high school biology. But mitochondria are little, what we call organelles. They're a little part of a cell that's the machinery, that's the motor, where this ATP is made. And so every single cell in your body has got hundreds of mitochondria in it, just churning out this ATP. But they can't do it if they don't get the building blocks. So we're going to talk about some of the things we can test for that are those building blocks and some of the end results of certain cells not having their little mitochondria function. Okay?
Well, it's interesting too because I see that a lot of people that come into the office often aren't eating enough. So when there's cellular energy, of course, we're talking a little bit more of the energy that's produced in your body, but where does that come from? That comes from the fuel that you're putting in.
Right.
And then there's a matter of how much are you absorbing and how much is your body able to utilize. And so when you're putting in not enough fuel and your body needs energy just to beat your heart, to flow your blood, to make your pupils dilate, to control your body temperature, if you don't have enough of energy input to just even allow your body to do that, your body's innately going to slow everything down in order to like use less energy to compensate for the fact that it's not giving enough fuel. Right. It's an empty gas tank.
Right.
And so some people don't realize that they're not allowing their body, they're slowing everything down, so not just their metabolism, but your body's moving slower. You can't even get up in the morning, you know? So nutrition is a big aspect, and we'll dive into that a little bit, but just so you know, there are some minimum needs there.
Right. That's very key to understand that food is fuel. And so what you put in is what you are replacing your body with, what you're healing it with. And if you put in processed food and a lot of sugar, then you're not going to have as healthy a cell as if you are putting in, you know, good, clean, organic vegetables, fruits, hormone-free animal proteins or plant proteins. You're getting all those good fats in the nuts and the nut butters and the olives and the coconut and all avocado and all these wonderful foods that your body needs to make that energy.
Yes, and also to manage your inflammation. You know, we're talking about inflammation being one of the causes of fatigue. Yeah. Again, it's all going to kind of somehow connect to some of the things that you're putting in.
The first step you want to do is look at what you're eating, okay? And look at how you're cooking it. Are you using good oils, healthy oils, or are you using very processed oils, things that are more inflammatory and less healthy? So look at your cooking, look at your cooking methods. That is something that can lead to just kind of general blah, no energy, no joie de vivre, no joy of life, you know? So that's the first place I would look.
I mean, everybody knows lunch coma, right? And that's typically somebody who maybe ate more carbs than they should at lunch. It converted to sugar. The insulin overreacted, pulls everything down. Yeah. And now everything's low, right? So that's lunch coma. The reason for that is that your blood sugar just dropped to...
Right. I was just going to say, to explain it more. So when you're eating a lot of carbs, your blood sugar goes high. Your body appropriately responds by sending out insulin to get that sugar into your cells and out of your blood, but it typically over-responds. It can't be very precise. So then your blood sugar plummets and you get really tired, and that's when you go for your bagel or your donut.
Your brain will be like, I need something, and your body will physiologically crave it.
Yeah, and so then you eat that and then boost your sugar up again, only to have another crash an hour or so later.
Pre-dinner coma.
Yeah. So those high doses of sugars without any benefit of fiber or fat or protein is very much less than ideal. So food, that's your number one thing to kind of think about. But another thing that a lot of people don't think about is medications. So if you are taking different medications, many of them will make you fatigued. So always looking at, you can Google that, look at the list of different side effects, talk to your doctor, see if that's a potential side effect of a medicine that you're on.
Yeah, and the fatigue can be caused by lower blood pressure. You know, some medications, especially if you're on a combined, some people see with their parents who are seniors and stuff, they're taking so much stuff. Often combined, they will altogether drop your blood pressure significantly low. When your blood pressure's low, you're going to feel fatigue. You know, it's something that with the medications, it can be something as simple as it causes fatigue because it just changes a dynamic in your body, or it's something that you want to pay attention. Because if it's low blood pressure, you might be able to eat something appropriate or drink more water, make sure you're hydrated, and compensate for that.
Right. So if your blood pressure is low, drinking more water can bring it up. Maybe adding a little salt if you don't have high blood pressure. Adding that can really help to bring your blood pressure up, and that might help your fatigue. Yeah. But think about things like beta blockers that we use for blood pressure issues, or even people will take that for anxiety. That is blocking those beta receptors, which are important for your energy. And so it not only brings your blood pressure down, but it will bring your energy down. And a lot of other medications can do that. Sometimes statins can do that. Antibiotics can certainly do that. So there's a wide range of medications, including a lot of your psychotropic medications for depression that can make you fatigued. There is a whole wide variety. So look whatever you're have been prescribed and see if fatigue is one possible side effect. But don't forget medications. That's one thing that I always want people to really kind of think about. The other thing to think about is, we talk about food and the importance there, but what if you're eating these great foods, but you're not digesting? Maybe you have IBS or IBD, which is Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. Maybe your pancreas isn't digesting, isn't sending out digestive enzymes. There can be a number of reasons that you might not be digesting. SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, would be another possible reason. If you're on proton pump inhibitors, like Prilosec and omeprazole, that type of thing, that will affect how well you digest your proteins, because it's dropping your stomach acid, which is critical for your digestion. So then you might be eating great food, but you're not benefiting from it. Yeah. So that's looking at the digestion and medications that can affect your digestion as well. So what's the next one you want to dive into?
Exercise. So a lot of people don't have the energy in their mind to get up and exercise, and it's not just in their mind. They really could be waking up with the lead feet and feeling that extreme exhaustion, and sometimes getting to the place of just in front of that, by just simple movement. Movement begets energy. So sometimes going for that walk is going to lift you up. Sometimes going to the gym when you're really tired is going to actually light you up a little bit. It's going to kind of stimulate some activity to get you, you think you don't have energy, but you have to kind of use it to get to that place where you do.
Right.
And it can really get you through the day. So if exercise to the appropriate level of what you have going on, it might be a yoga class that can be energizing. It might be a session of meditation that can be energizing. A lot of people, don't, if they're learning meditation and sometimes it makes them quiet or drowsy, or some people use it at nighttime to sleep, it's actually very energizing, because when you get your brain active, for me, I have to do it in the morning because it tends to stimulate me. Brain activities.
Right.
So I was telling you, the piano, I get really, when my brain lights up, I start to get more energy.
Energetic.
Yeah. So.
Yes. And that's a key thing, just kind of tying that in. If you're at a very sedentary job or at a very stressful job, where the stress kind of weighs on you and just kind of sucks the energy, the life out of you, then sometimes doing something like exercise, which is also stress management, it starts to kind of bring that energy back. And so that's a great way to burn off stress, which can also be a big fatiguer. Okay?
Yeah. And even that you brought up the workplace, if you take your earlobes and kind of play with your earlobes and squat at the same time.
Okay.
It's utilizing both sides of your brain. So you've got bilateral brain activity, plus you're actually moving. So you're changing your state.
Right.
So now your body is physically waking up. That will actually also energize you.
Yes.
They do that. You go to conferences and stuff, and they have you doing dancing and jiggling around and stuff, and that's changing your state. That's trying to get you in a place of being more energized.
Right. Using that brain. And Kristen mentions quite rightly, dehydration can make you feel fatigued also. Absolutely. So drinking a nice big glass of water can be a big game changer. And just trying to stay ahead of it. Always having your water beside you. We've got water here. We've got water here. So, just always staying hydrated is really critical. Because again, those cells, those little mitochondria, they need not only nutrients, but they need water to make that whole ATP little flow happening. Other things to think about.
Sleep, right?
Sleep, of course. So that's kind of self-explanatory. If you're getting lousy sleep, if you're either not going to bed early enough, you're having to get up, or you're waking up multiple times through the night, then you're going to get poorer quality sleep and you're going to be less refreshed. Yeah. So looking at your sleep. Do you have sleep apnea? Do you have a bed partner that moves? Is your room too light that you're waking up? Right? So all of these things, look at your sleep environment and really work on that. That can be a project for a whole year. We're at the beginning of a year right now, and I always suggest people kind of choose an area and kind of dive into that. And that might be your area for this year. I want to really make my sleep the best sleep I can get. Yeah. Create a nighttime routine so that you're kind of calming your body and getting ready for sleep. Do your journaling and your gratitude, and have lavender and do Epsom salt baths. Get into a good groove with your sleep, because the sleep is very critical, obviously, to combating fatigue.
And on the flip side of that, when you get up in the morning. So it's really important what you do with those first few hours of the day to manage your circadian rhythm. So, waking up and within 6 to 8:30 is the kind of happy window I've read about. Getting that exposure to sunlight. So not sunglasses, but actually if you have to sit outside and have your coffee, or you go around the block, or people in the snow are like, yeah, right.
Right.
Look out a window. Whatever it does to get some sort of, sunlight in your eyes is actually going to help reset your circadian rhythm. So if you're waking up and you're groggy and your body just didn't feel rested, getting yourself on that wake-sleep schedule is going to start to get consistent and allow for your body to get back into kind of that bell curve that it should be with the cortisol.
And if you are up in the north, northeast, northwest, or just straight north, you can get little lights that turn on, and they will start to gradually increase the light. And so that's used actually relatively commonly where I'm from in the Midwest of Canada to combat seasonal affective disorder, SAD. So that seasonal affective disorder is very common this time of year because it doesn't get light until 8:30 or so, and then it's dark by around 4:30, and so you have very limited exposure to the sun. So having a nice little lamp in your bedroom that you can turn a timer on and then increase the glow that you get. So that will work with that HPA axis, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Okay.
Say that really fast.
Right, 3 times fast, right?
Fantastic.
Yes, Feldman circadian rhythm. Yes, around 15 minutes. Yes.
Deborah says low B12 is an issue.
That's a great point. Great segue into our next one. So we talked a bit about nutrients and kind of getting general nutrients, but micronutrients are really important. So B12 is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies that we have. And that's often because with the B12 is absorbed in your stomach. As we age, we make less stomach acid, our stomach's less acidic, or if we're put on those proton pump inhibitors, or we're taking Pepto-Bismol, or Tums all the time, we're decreasing the acidity in our stomach, we then can't absorb the B12. This little thing called intrinsic factor requires a certain acidity in your stomach to be able to bind to that B12. So very common to have not only anemia from B12, but you can just the B12 deficit will impact how your little mitochondria work. You don't even have to be anemic from it, but if you are anemic, that makes it even worse.
Yeah, B12 is a big energizer. It's
big
like
energizer.
It's kind of like the magnesium. If magnesium's missing, a lot of things don't happen well. If B12's not in place, a lot of things don't happen well.
Right. And so that's all of your Bs, but particularly B12 is a big one. So that B12, I'm going to segue then into anemia. So you can have anemia, which is low hemoglobin. You can have that for several reasons. And if your hemoglobin is low, that's what binds the oxygen that we breathe. It binds it and carries it all around the body. So if you don't have enough of those little molecules carrying the oxygen around, that's just as bad as not having enough sugar, not enough of the glucose. And so you don't get the energy. So you can have anemia from losing blood from heavy menstrual periods. You can have it because your diet is poor in iron, or your diet is poor in B12, or you're not digesting your B12 and absorbing it. You can have it from other nutrients, but your iron and your Bs are going to be the most common reasons.
Is it true that you can have a lower hemoglobin as a result of eating dairy?
So it is and it isn't. So the dairy can sometimes bind to your B vitamins, especially B12, and then kind of neutralize them, and then you don't absorb them as well. You have to eat, drink a fair amount of dairy to do that. It's not just going to be from a little milk in your cereal.
Well, the reason I ask is I had donated blood one time, and I was just under the hemoglobin limit. So they sent me away, and they said, come back and make sure you don't eat any dairy the night before.
Right.
So I was like, really? Dairy? Like that quickly could make an adjustment? I don't know.
Yeah,
it was
I don't
like,
know if it's that quick.
The mobile blood bus.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was curious, sorry.
Yeah.
I digress.
But yeah, you need those things. And I'm not big on dairy anyways because it's very inflammatory.
Yeah.
So yeah, eat less of it. That would be awesome. So that is something, so that fatigue there. Then we also want to talk about different toxins. So there's a lot of toxins that can make you fatigued. heavy metals, for example, or our persistent organic pollutants. We have chemicals that are surrounding us that can affect how those little mitochondria work. These are all things we can't evade. I mean, they're out there. We can't get rid of them completely, but we can try to have as few chemicals in our environment as possible by eating organic, by getting cleaning products that are on the Environmental Working Group's list of healthier chemicals. Just trying to live as clean as possible will limit them. Staying away from, couches that have the flame retardants in it, pajamas that have the flame retardants. All of these things, we don't totally understand how they work individually and how do they work in connection with all the other chemicals that we're throwing into our environment that were never made before. So just kind of watching that piece, especially your heavy metals. Mercury, very well known to affect the nervous system, and that can make you fatigued and give you all kinds of different symptoms. But mercury is pervasive in our ocean environment and in our air. So if you eat a lot of fish, you're exposed to a lot of mercury. You got to watch that.
Yeah, and the mercury in general, not just the mercury, but when you talk about the other toxins, I think about like your liver. And if you have any type of vulnerability and your liver's not detoxing well, I mean, that's like a definite
if you overload it, right, your liver does a great job of detoxing, so it's there for you. But if you're throwing alcohol on chemicals, on lack of sleep and poor nutrition, it doesn't stand a chance. It's got to have the building blocks to do what it needs to do. So looking at all those pieces.
Well, and when people talk about doing detoxes, at the end of the year and whatnot, like that's why a lot of people report like this exceptional energy, because they're helping their liver. Right. They're using cleaner foods, or they're escorting toxins out of their body. These are things, it's the reason you're getting more energy, right? Because you're cleaning up your system.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we would be remiss if we did not mention the thyroid. Okay, so thyroid disease is one of the top reasons people will have fatigue. It's often missed. I think it's underdiagnosed in general. It's more common now than ever, and there's some mounting evidence, it's not proven, but there's some mounting evidence that it is a combination of all the chemicals that is in our environment, the fluoride and things like that we're eating and swallowing, and it's affecting how our thyroid works.
Gluten's a big
and gluten can be a part of that. Yeah, there's a lot of little puzzle pieces we're going to have to figure out, but we're definitely seeing a lot more thyroid disease. And you can have thyroid disease, low thyroid or high thyroid, and you can get low thyroid from not having enough of the building blocks like iodine and tyrosine and selenium, or you can have thyroid disease because you've got antibodies that are knocking off your thyroid. Okay. And then when you have less of those thyroid hormones around, the thyroid hormones are there because every single cell in your body has to be activated by the thyroid hormones. Free T3 has to go in, lock into its little receptor, and turn that cell on to do whatever it does.
We did a great show on thyroid. So informative. Yeah. I learned a ton. I would definitely go back and check it out on the Vita channel on YouTube. Yeah. But there's so much great information on the thyroid. It would actually all make sense.
Half an hour on that. But you need lots of that free T3 for every cell in your body, so that your digestive cells get turned on, your eye cells get turned on, your brain cells get turned on. If you don't have that T3, they don't get turned on. And so that will kind of wipe out any kind of energy you got. It will be gone. Yeah.
And I know we're getting to the point here, but everyone grab out your pen and paper, because we're going to go through some of the tests that you could ask your doctor for that are going to help you to kind of establish if you're just tired because you're not sleeping well, if you're tired because of metals, if you're tired because of nutrition. Right. Some of the things that you can ask your doctor that would kind of give you a little bit of clues. It doesn't necessarily mean that
this isn't a deep dive in terms of functional medicine. We will tend to go a lot deeper for people that are fatigued, but this is a great starting place. And if your doctor's not comfortable ordering all of these tests, see if they can order at least some of them, and then you can take it from there. And if you're still not getting any place, then search out a functional medicine practitioner wherever you are, and they'll absolutely know how to dive into fatigue. Okay, so everybody got their pen and paper? So write down CBC, complete blood count. That's going to look for your anemia. It's going to look for an elevated white count. It's going to look for kinds of cancers, which is another thing I didn't really talk about, but blood cancers can make you very fatigued. That's like leukemia, lymphoma. So those are other things that can make you fatigued. So your CBC, number one. Then looking for your B12 and your folate. Your doctor should be quite happy at ordering those 2 tests. Those are very simple B vitamins and give you kind of an idea what your other Bs are doing as well. Iron and ferritin. So iron is needed to make your red cells, and ferritin is your storage form of iron. So ferritin can go down if you're having very heavy periods, for example, and your iron will go down and then your ferritin will go down because the stores go down. Ferritin also is a acute phase reactant, and that's just a fancy term meaning it goes up if you have inflammation. And so if it's too high, that's a cue that you've got inflammation going on somewhere in your body. So iron and ferritin. Then looking for autoimmune disease like your thyroid. So looking for the thyroid antibodies and looking for ANA, which is anti-nuclear antibody, and RF, which is rheumatoid factor. These are all different antibodies that your body can make that might be a sign of autoimmunity, which is another big reason
and
for being
typical
fatigued.
Doctor, like a practitioner, run those too? Even
Those
though
are more
they're not
common with the
specialty?
rheumatologist, but yeah, any good internist or general practitioner should be happy to run those tests. That should not be out of the realm of the normal. Then looking for other signs of inflammation, ESR, which is also known as a sed rate, or a CRP, C-reactive protein. And I generally do a HSCRP, a highly sensitive C-reactive protein. So I want to kind of see just how that's a good indicator of one of your inflammatory markers called IL-16. So that is, again, those are common tests that every practitioner should be able to run along with your thyroid. They'll typically just do a TSH. Ask them to do a free T3 and a free T4. If you want to get really fancy, there's some other ones, but if they could at least do the TSH, free T3, and free T4, then at least you have a pretty good idea of not only what your brain is telling your thyroid to do, but what your thyroid's actually doing.
Doing with it, yeah.
Yeah. So then we get into some other ones that the doctors feel less comfortable about doing. So checking a morning cortisol level to see what your stress level is. If you're overwhelmed and stressed out, that sometimes is super high, sometimes is super, super low. And that can cause very big fatigue issues if it's way too low. So morning cortisol, it's a blood test. Then looking at Epstein-Barr titers. So Epstein-Barr is a virus that causes mono, but it can also be reactivated and cause chronic fatigue. There's other more current terms, but they're very long and you're not going to be able to write them down. So just think chronic fatigue. The Epstein-Barr titers with an early antigen. Okay, early antigen for Epstein-Barr is how we diagnose that reactivation. Then asking for them to look for heavy metals. Arsenic, mercury, lead are the 3 biggest players in terms of fatigue and neural function. Okay, so those sometimes they're not so happy to order, but sometimes you can convince them that it might be in your best interest, especially if they've done that whole first year and those have all been normal. Then maybe you can get them to go, especially if you do have a risk for a lot of seafood or exposure to lead. Maybe you lived in Flint or other places that have had water issues. Yeah, construction with that, arsenic with shellfish. So those would be some other key ones. If you want to go down a little bit more down that rabbit hole, you can do other viruses. CMV, cytomegalovirus, or parvovirus are other viruses that can cause a lot of fatigue. If it's acute, ehrlichiosis, so you can get that. Lyme disease can cause a lot of fatigue. So I didn't really dive into those because those are kind of not less common for me, but less common in the general population. But because I'm seeing a skewed population with a lot of people that have fatigue, I see that more commonly.
And these are all what you could potentially ask for your conventional doctor to run in today's world.
Absolutely.
If you're working with a functional practitioner, you're going to be looking at
a
lot more. Yeah. Just go for the gusto, get the puzzle pieces right out there.
Right.
So
that's a list. That will be several vials of blood if you can get them to do all those things. And always when they're doing that, you want to look at your liver function and your kidney function. So that's a complete metabolic panel, CMP. So you want to look at your liver and kidney function and your blood sugar, because that is also one thing that can make you very fatigued if your blood sugar is too low or too high. So too high, if your blood sugar is 200, 300, 400, you're going to get really tired. Your vision's going to get cloudy. You're going to not feel good. So that is often how diabetes gets picked up. So fatigue is one of those things. Fatigue and peeing a lot can be diabetes.
Sally and Lori just joined.
Okay. Hey, guys.
Just in time, guys.
Just in time to say goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, for watching. And please, as always, feel free to share this with anybody that you think might benefit. And we really love to share what we know, these simple things that can empower you to kind of be your own doctor, so to speak. We want to kind of put the reins in your hands so that you know what's going on with your body. You take responsibility, and these are some of the ways that you can do it. Okay?
Yes. Any questions, guys, we'll be responding, so feel free to put them in the comments.
We'll watch for them. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next Monday, Monday Night Mythbusters. Signing off.
Thanks. Good night, guys.
Have a great week.
Bye.